Whether you're listening at home, at work, or anywhere, thanks for making Para X part of your day. Your source for everything paranormal, Para X.
And welcome back, everybody, right here to the Paranormal View on the Para X Radio Network. I want to thank everyone for being with us tonight, those in the chat room and those listening from all kinds of other places. Tonight we got with us Barbara Duncan.
Good evening, everyone.
And we have Jeffrey Gould.
Hello.
And speaking of listeners from everywhere, Barbara, where do we have listeners at tonight?
Oh, they're coming in from all sorts of places tonight. We have the United States, the United Kingdom, Scotland, which is part of the United Kingdom, sorry, Canada, Puerto Rico, and Norway.
Oh, wow. We got all kinds of listeners tonight then.
Oh, yeah.
They're probably shaking in their boots hearing about Krampus. So we have with us our great guest, Lillee Allee.
I am here.
Yeah, I knew she'd be back.
Now that Skype is finally behaving, yes.
What was it? Was you having problems?
It did earlier. That's why I was late. But I wanted to just give you some facts on Krampus, something that I thought was really important. Peter Jelovich, which is a professor of history at Johns Hopkins, he was quoted in the National Geographic as pointing out that, he believes that it may be the horned god of the pagans, a pre-Christian Alpine tradition, which would bring about Faunus, and would bring about Pan. But by the 17th century, Krampus was paired up with St. Nicholas, so they were the dynamic duo. And the reason why the German immigrants kept it such a quiet celebration between families was the fact that many people did and would confuse Krampus with the Christian devil because of the hair, horns, hooves, and fangs. Now, it was also forbidden by the Catholic Church, as I talked about earlier, by fascists in World War II Europe, who believed that Krampus himself was a part of the Social Democrat politics, if you can believe that. And that's why they outlawed Krampus. And Austria tried to ban the beliefs in the 1930s through the 1950s, also for political reasons. But today, he's becoming very popular in the United States. And we have even had last year, I think it was, and well, certainly not this year, I have to keep saying that, but there have even been a Krampus Con happening here in the United States.
There has been, but I don't think that the Krampus is caught on here to actually scare the kids. I think it's more of an adult thing now.
It's more adult time. It's more of adult fun here. Mm-hmm. I don't think we have enough gentlemen who want to spend their hard-earned bucks to make Krampus outfits and dance around in the street in the afternoon.
But let's talk about that a little bit, because modernization of Krampus, there was lore going on, or at least some stories, that Krampus also abducted loose women and immoral men.
Yes. And, that was another thing but that wasn't, it sounds good, okay? And again, that's a great story for a teenager who might be going awry and running amok. But, I think that would have been quite the wonderful excuse if you wanted to get rid of your wife. Oh, well, she was pretty bad, and Krampus came. I saw him last night. He was hoofing around, and he took her. I don't know where she went. So I don't want it to be seen as an excuse for foul play, if you will. Mm-hmm. Krampus is just fun. You now can still get them on postcards, I hate to say it, but Christmas cards, dolls, shirts, and mugs. And I even have heard of, I haven't found it yet, but there's even a stuffed Krampus, which I thought would be way too much fun.
Was that your ringtone? Samantha's nose?
Yes, that's my ringtone.
That's awesome.
Nose.
My ringtone is the TARDIS, but that's
there you go. See? That is the way that I am.
Just so you know, Idaho KrampusCon will be back in 2021, it says.
Okay, beautiful. So we can go back to KrampusCon. If, there's so many things out now. They've got comic books. They've got a whole bunch of stuff. There are adorable comics on YouTube, and some of them are really good. And there's even Krampus songs, which I don't believe there was in the beginning, but now you can hear, I love Krampus, yeah, 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 yeah. It's true.
Well, there's Krampus poems galore.
Yes.
And I find that interesting as well. But some of them are obviously very modern. Some of them look like to be a little bit older. But yeah, he seems to, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you can go to various parts of Europe and find a lot of hidden statuary, which seems to be Krampus related.
There is even a Krampus related, I say it's Krampus, but there's a Krampus related statue on a building in Albany. And it's so obvious to me, but we've never been able to find out for sure if it is Krampus, but we're working on that.
Huh.
Well, it's interesting because if you look at statues of, or facades of the Green Man, for example.
Yep.
He also has that look.
Absolutely. So, but the Green Man does not have the long tongue and the twigs.
Yeah.
So that's the only way you can tell them apart, to be honest with you. If they have a batch of twigs in their hand, it's probably Krampus or chains. And don't you always wonder in the early English stories where chains were rattling?
Right.
You have to wonder, did that really come from thoughts of somebody dying in a, dungeon in a castle, or was it because Krampus walked around with chains?
Okay. Well, yeah, in the Scrooge story, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Christmas Carol is not, shall we say, it turns out okay, but it's not a happy story.
Not at all.
No.
It's sort of scary.
And it was. And the reason for it was I was bad, and this is my eternity. So don't you do that, or this is the way you'll be.
Yeah. And again, a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
And keeping the Christmas season sacred. And you can use that word sacred in any way you want to fit that story, because for some, it was traditionally a time to give to the poor, so they could have a Christmas too. And, especially the English stories are rife with people who were not kind to others, and so they got their comeuppance. Remember that word when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah.
You're going to
get your comeuppance. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, now, back in the olden days, Krampus was awful big in Europe as far as really with the tales to scare the kids. Is it really big there now also scaring the kids, or is it kind of went mainstream for adults to party on?
I think it's both. I think, the Krampuslauf, again, though it's becoming a big tourism thing, I wish that would stop. It's become a great tourism thing. Yeah, but I think that it's also regarding the misbehaved youth. Okay? And, again, you will see in villages the mayor or whatever may be dressed as Krampus. And if he sees a bad kid, they may get a little swat with the birch sticks. They don't fool around. You've all seen the videos, right? They're pretty scary, but they're fun.
Yeah, some of those are, especially the night runs.
Yes.
Where the illumination of the fire, because they are carrying torches, it's amazing. Just amazing to look at.
And on
we have
the other side of the year. Oh,
yeah.
Sorry.
We have a couple of questions in the chat, and one is the Krampus minions, because it seems to me I thought I read something about Krampus cats.
There have been various tales of wolves and cats, and again, those are add-ons that may be from a particular family or a particular area. But yeah, can you imagine Krampus cats?
Well, you got the Yule cat, which is Scandinavian cat that attacked you if you didn't get clothes.
Right, and look about the Yule goat.
I don't know the
Yeah,
Yule
I have
goat.
heard
Is
of
that
that
like
one.
Black Phillip or?
No, the Yule goat was just a nice thing. They had a Yule goat.
Oh,
Really?
I'll
Yeah.
have to look up the Yule goat.
And what about Pete?
Black Pete? Black Pete is a whole nother story.
Uh-oh.
Black Pete is a version of Krampus. Okay, but remember, he's not exactly the same. And I'll give you an example of this, okay? But I think the biggest thing with Black Pete is it's all, again, different areas had different versions. And that's, just the way it goes. Now, let me explain this to you so I can explain it a little better with Black Pete, okay? Black Pete is an interesting story in itself in that it's a different area. And again, depending on the area, you're going to see a different reaction. Just like with Krampus, you're going to see a different side of things. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's going to be a different situation, if you will. So not every Krampus is going to be black. Some areas, they're going to have him brown. A lot of them refer to him as looking like a goat with a big tongue. Okay? And, that's a possibility too. But when you think about it, there's a lot of parts of this dark Christmas that have affected people throughout the ages. And I'm going to tell you about down the chimney too. Now, Black Pete is actually, okay, he certainly hasn't taken over in the United States because our society would never allow this. Okay? It would carry a lot of different issues for us. Basically, he's a jovial servant, and he is terrifying, and he's played each year by a Dutch man, are you ready for this, in blackface. Okay? He's bizarrely popular in Holland, and it's really turned into more than these days of a minstrel show. But you can see where I'm offended by it. And that's where our cultural traditions and Holland's aren't going to work together.
Right.
Okay.
Now, the other one that's similar to Krampus is, of course, the Lord of Misrule. Okay, and this comes from England. Way back, and still done sometimes today, someone would be selected at random to assume the title of the Lord of Misrule. He had to lead the Christmas festivities. Okay? Now, one of the perks was they could get as drunk as they wanted to, perform pranks, do tricks, and command anyone to do anything they like. Of course, it was all fun and games, but more than a few people took it too far and they got beheaded. So that's not as popular as it used to be either.
Yeah. Lose your head over something.
Yeah. Yeah. Just saying it could be much worse. But another thing, you were talking about the portal and chimneys. There are countless European legends that tell about helpful and malicious spirits or entities sneaking into your home through the chimney. Scottish and English stories talk about the brownie, which is that helpful household spirit that helps you, clean, which I've been wanting one for years.
And they're the cobbler kind of elves, right?
Yes. Now, in the Middle Ages, conveniently, witches were also thought to pass into their homes through the chimneys. That's why you didn't see them. Of course, they were going around on these brooms, and then you didn't see them anymore because they snuck down through their chimney. Even in Greece, they had goblins known to crawl into the homes through the chimney, and they terrorized the family. And in 19th century Pennsylvania, Pelsnickel or Belsnickel would slip down your chimney, and he'd give a good child an orange, but punish the naughty ones with a whip.
Wow.
Gee, where did
Nobody
that
likes
come
that.
from, do you think? But remember, 19th century, a lot of people who are German often wonder, how did Pennsylvania Dutch turn out to be Pennsylvania Dutch? Well, they created their own culture, if you will, so it's now Pelsnickel or Belsnickel, and you got an orange or you got a whip, your choice.
Wow. Give me the orange.
Yeah, of the two. Oh, and I knew I wanted to say something else that we were talking about because we talked about so much. Now, remember, Saint Nick had to go up and down the chimneys and go through every house. Think about that. You're not going to have some fat, sloppy guy being dragged around by these these poor little reindeer, okay? But what happened was Washington Irving, who, as many of you know, wrote Sleepy Hollow, he erroneously referred to the old man as portly in his story published in 1809. And then he had a dream that he recounted about Santa flying around in a weightless wagon. These ideas stuck, and this is part of what caused the Coca-Cola Santa.
Yeah. Because it's supposed to be magic that does it for Santa Claus to where he's able to go down the chimney along with the bag of toys and leave the stuff and then go back out
Yes.
without getting any soot on his clothes.
Right. But again, I mean, I loved the Santa. I just got to be honest with you. I love the Santa in Christmas Horror Story. And I just like the fact that he's a tough guy. I think Santa would be, this kindly but tough guy. I mean, if he was a sucker, can you imagine? He'd be sending one load for every kid.
Oh, yeah.
He'd never get his work done.
No.
So, just saying, and if you remember, too, traditionally, Santa brought things that the family otherwise couldn't afford, like oranges and extra nuts, okay? Chestnuts to make stuffing, things like that. We've turned Santa into this mega money-making scheme.
Oh, that's exactly what it is, too.
And we took the Christmas tree from, again, European sources and turned it into something it just shouldn't and couldn't be.
Right.
I'm not for the fake trees, but I remember, you probably remember them too. Do you remember the metal trees in the 60s?
The little aluminum ones? And you have a little round light, red, blue, and green. It would turn and shine on it. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, how gross is that? That's nothing about, celebrating the beautiful outdoors inside. Now, again, in the German households, we would take cotton, and it took 2 to 3 days, depending on the size of your tree, and a thick layer of cotton on all the different boughs, so it looked like there was snow on it, because it was supposed to look like something that you'd brought in from outside,
right?
Not some metal, post-apocalyptical future Christmas.
Right.
So a pink aluminum Christmas tree is probably not a good thing.
I'm sure if you had a reason for one, I think that would be great. But, if you're a little bit more of a traditionalist, I sort of like, my Christmas tree the way I have it. Same way I got into a great discussion with a friend who I play song pop with, okay? And he was always raised with Santa being black. Why? He's black, right?
Huh.
He's an African American, and that's what he was brought up with. And he said, I'm wondering, do you have a problem with that? And I said, absolutely not. My Santa may have blue eyes, but that's what my family had, right?
Right.
If you were in China, I would hope that if you wanted to grab our traditions, you would at least make Santa yours.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I don't see anything wrong with that. And so to me, we all have to check our own stuff at the door and say, if we're going to be diverse, allow everyone to have the Santa that works for them.
Right. That's true.
As well it should.
And please, no blackface with the black Pete. I think that's just. I mean, I get it.
Yes.
That was their, but that's something that I don't think anyone's going to say that's really diverse and great, and let's start doing that.
Well, do you think that with the situation, COVID, and all this introspection and whatever, that people are starting to dig out the old traditions and revisit some of the characters that were involved in more of the ancient traditions?
I would hope so. Okay. And one of the things I'd love to see, and this is just me, if you have a fireplace, burn a nice smelling log, you know what I mean? Do your own Yule log if you want to. And do something different this year, only because what I'm hearing from my friends is their kids have made lists of Netflix and Hulu shows that they can all watch. And I keep saying, make it family oriented and make it fun. Make it something like, for example, even at Christmas, Wizard of Oz does not cause any problems and makes everybody smile. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Sure.
But you have to be careful. On the other hand, to me, I think board games are a great opportunity. When was the last time you saw a family sitting down to a board game? And I think that would be fun. Those are the things that, a lot of talking was done when you were playing gin rummy or playing board games. And by the mid-70s, at least in my family, after Thanksgiving, everybody cleaned up everything quickly so we could go to the mall. And I still don't know what the mall has to do with Puritans and the Mayflower, but whatever, right? But we all did that back then because they were finally open. Okay. And the one thing COVID can maybe teach us is that while it's fun, I mean, nobody can say that going to a mall and hearing the Christmas carols and seeing Santa, I mean, it's magical, right? There we go again.
Right.
But on the other hand, if you think about it, it's also a little bit mercenary, a little bit money affected, because the best gift to me would be something that wouldn't cost a lot but would mean so much.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I'll tell a sad story, but an interesting story tied to that, which it was the last Christmas before John died. And we were at the house, and my parents weren't well. So he and I went out to dinner. I still have the pictures very close to my heart. And we got all dressed up and went to a restaurant right around the corner from our house. Okay? Beautiful restaurant, all dialed up. And he said, this is about all I can do tonight. I wanted to go out and get you something, but I couldn't. And I said to him, this could be our last Christmas. To being together is the most awesome thing.
Yeah.
I can hold these memories. I'll lose a locket. I can break a ring. But you can't take that memory away from me.
True.
Okay. And how many times have I heard parents say, if I hadn't been working all the time, I would have really enjoyed my kid more when they were 7. Well, that's the one thing you really have to think about, because they're never 7 again.
And by the time that you've got time to spend with them, they are grown up, running around, and they're never with you then.
Yep, cat's in the cradle, right?
I was just going to say that.
Yep, that's it. Yeah.
And we all say that. Well, there's time, right? And I learned, unfortunately, very quickly that we had to live every day like it was the last, because there was no time.
Right.
And you begin to appreciate the little things more. Okay, I had one woman who's no longer my friend actually telling me, he didn't buy you anything and that could have been his last Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and when you're dealing with people that are like that, I think of the Grinch.
Yep.
Okay, is that all it's about, is going to and there's nothing that he could have gotten because he couldn't walk as well at that point. He would have just gone to get anything, and that's not what we want. We want something special. So I tell everyone, COVID or not, there are many times you're not going to know it, but it may be the last Christmas you see Aunt Zelda or, Uncle George, and try to make the holiday the most positive you can with the people you can have at your house.
Right.
And do something memorable.
Yeah.
Even if it's going outside and looking at the sky. Do something that you've never done before. That's the spirit of Christmas. You don't have to think. I mean, I used to love going to midnight mass. Why? Because it was so different, right? Only time of year you can do that. So that's what I suggest to people. Though I love Krampus, make the Christmas work for you.
Yeah. That's like.
Well, I mean, this year there's you can drive around and look at Christmas lights, and don't forget, folks, on the 21st, look to the southwest. It'll be Jupiter and Saturn, the only conjunction in 600 years, and it's going to be beautiful.
Now, you say you look to the southwest?
Yes, at night.
Okay, at night. But do you have, West Coast timeline would be different.
You do not need binoculars. It will be amazing.
Really? Okay.
Right.
As long as it's dark.
As long as it's dark.
All right.
And what date is that? December
21st.
21st.
Oh,
Solstice.
on the solstice of all places.
December 21st. I will be looking.
So that's magic, Lillee, right there.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
For me in this area, whether I was in Minnesota or here, Christmas is the time you can see, sometimes, if you're lucky, the most beautiful thing to me in the world was the Aurora Borealis. And now you can even watch cams showing it, far better than you could even get a glimpse of it. And isn't that a miracle? Isn't that amazing? Yes, we know how it's caused and why it's caused, right? But it's still amazing. Enjoy.
Yeah, when I was stationed in North Dakota, at night I'd be having to run out to some of the missile sites or out that way, picking up a vehicle that had broke down or something like that, and you would be able to see the northern lights in North Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Once you've seen it, it haunts you.
Mm-hmm.
You want to see it again and again.
It's very beautiful. Yeah.
So, I mean, when we get down to it, really, the holidays are about, which is basically trying to get in touch with that childhood magic again, where we didn't know all the facts, but it was fun to anticipate.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
As a child. I think that's what Christmas is really for the kids. So in Europe now, is it still so much Krampus, or are they bringing Santa Claus into the factor?
Well, if you listen to the one of my favorite bands, Rammstein, and you listen to America, they, nationalists in Germany don't really want our version of Santa Claus. They have their own. Okay? And so, have we taken over a lot of traditions? Sure. People have adopted it, and sometimes it's been forced on them. I mean, that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother show. But I don't think you can ever get rid of the magic of whether you want to call him Saint Nick, Santa Claus, any of the stories, okay? I think it's beautiful the way it is. And, the whole coming of the light, whether you want to look at Saint Lucia or any of these things, beautiful, beautiful things. And why we need, as, experts far smarter than I have said, we need ritual in our lives, okay? And we need to remember and relink. And that's what makes Christmas so awesome. And telling you as a widow, I look at Christmas as a kid. I will go and get my little Snickers tree. Have you seen those?
Oh yeah.
And I will eat it very happily. I'll get the pups something. And you make it what it is. You can go outside for a walk, and it's just so quiet. And some of the neighborhoods still have the little lights that they put on outside,
Sure.
in the bag with the sand.
Right.
And how beautiful is that?
Hmm.
And that's magical, right? And that's what Christmas is about. I think one of the things that a lot of people are going to miss is whether you go to the soup kitchen and work or whether you go to church, you're missing that aspect of community. But we've all been missing a lot of aspects of family.
Sure.
And this may be quite the wake-up call for people to realize that you want and need family if you're lucky enough to have it. And when you have it, you've got to cherish it because eventually it will be gone.
Yes. And in case people is wondering, Barbara wants a Christmas tree of peeps.
That's
yeah,
an
peep
interesting
build
Christmas tree.
A Christmas peep. Yeah.
The Christmas peep, yes.
Yes, the Christmas peep.
Alas,
I
there are no holiday peeps this year because of COVID. So
Really? None
Yep.
at
Yep.
all? Huh. I seen some somewhere. I know I did.
there may be some old ones around there, but they're all in production now for the spring peeps. But
Ah. Wow.
But think of this way, if you've waited this long,
Yeah.
Easter peeps are going to be good.
oh, I don't eat them, but
No, she
Oh, you
don't eat them.
them, you just like to look at them.
I
I eat 'em.
photograph. Yeah.
Okay.
Get on Amazon. I'm sure you can find some. Take pictures
Oh
of it.
yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't know if I would eat them if I got them, last year's peeps.
Yeah. They
Just
go stale
saying, they
pretty
might
darn
be a little
fast.
not tasty, might be a little hard, but, each to his own.
Very much. But yeah, it's interesting that in a day of modern technology, that everybody knows Krampus is not real.
Right.
But we still need him to a certain degree because we need that association of life, right brain, left brain. We need fact, but we also need the ideal.
Yes.
You say.
Well, I'll give you another example that I think is huge, okay? How many of you left out milk and cookies for Santa?
Back when I
Anyone
was
do that?
little,
Yeah, yeah.
probably.
Okay. Did you ever come down and find the cookie bitten?
No.
Oh,
Well, I had parents, so yeah.
Yeah.
okay. No, I would often find the cookie bitten. Okay, now whether they let the dog bite it or they took a bite themselves, I don't know. But the cookie was usually bitten and the milk looked like it had gone down. Probably the cat got some milk that day. But I'm just telling you, think about it. Once you're 10, it's all out there, right?
Oh, yeah.
But when you're
Boom.
5 and you leave the milk and cookies for Santa
Yep.
and you find a bite, it makes you wonder.
Mhm.
You'll argue with your older
Yep.
siblings. And remember, parents encourage children to leave the cookies because that way, and this was started, by the way, during the Depression, that you should also be grateful for the things you're given. And giving was just as important as receiving.
Yes.
Okay, so it sounds like a cute little custom. Oh, we'll leave cookies for Santa. But there was another tale for children.
Yeah, I would eat all my cookies.
Even the ones you left for Santa?
There probably wasn't any left to leave for Santa.
Poor Santa.
No, really.
Uh,
But Krampus never. I mean, the Krampus never had offerings left for him. Correct.
Well, I think I've heard different stories that kids tried to, maybe
their way up.
bribe Krampus, but we never knew what Krampus liked. Do you know what I'm saying? Maybe you could leave a beer for Krampus, but I never left anything for Krampus. I was hoping that I would end up with St. Nicholas, and I really didn't want to find a little thing of branches on my plate. So yeah, no, it's almost like, think of it this way, it would almost be like welcoming him in, and you don't want to do that.
Okay. So no bribing your way out of trouble.
Yes. Now, do either of you know the story of why we have stockings?
That's where they would leave, well, I guess the early kids, that's where they would get their presents at, was in the stockings.
Before
I think it
that,
was-
what caused it to be stockings?
Well,
They
that's
probably
usually where they
didn't-
would dry them out
Yeah,
by the fire.
Right. But this goes back to the 4th century.
Well-
Ready for the story?
I would assume they didn't have a tree, and so therefore they just had stockings.
Well, there would always have been a tree in the Bavarian area
Oh,
because that was pre-Christian.
oh,
But in the 4th century, a bishop overheard an elderly man crying. He didn't have enough money to supply his 3 daughters with a dowry. Now, this is from Donald Dossey's book, all right, on holiday folklore. At the time, in the 4th century, women who didn't have a dowry would not be accepted by any male and often ended up in prostitution because there was no other way to support themselves. So the legend goes that this bishop, St. Nicholas, was so moved by this man's plight, he crept into the family's home at night and filled their stockings with bags of gold.
wow.
They had hung up their stockings by the fireplace to dry. The 3 women and their father lived happily ever after. The bishop would later be anointed St. Nicholas, the patron saint of children, and one of the inspirations for our today's Santa Claus.
Wow.
So all
I've
this
never
time I
found
should have
gold in
hung
my
up a
stocking.
Yeah, I'm with you, Lillee. I never had that either.
Yeah, I haven't found gold in my stocking yet. There's always a chance.
I don't know. I've got my stocking hanging up already, but I don't think there's anything in it.
Well, yeah, it works that way, doesn't it? But I think that's an amazing story, but how many kids don't know that story
I
and
didn't know it.
don't know that's what it came from?
Yeah, I didn't
was
know it.
this year's old when I found that out. So
See?
Well, you got gold
So-
in your stocking?
no,
No.
I wish.
I would probably have holes in my stocking at that point. But yeah,
Well, there was a tale. There was a tale of somebody who allegedly sold their soul. One of the Satan stories is he sold his soul to the devil. That he would come. The Satan would fill a stocking, or his boots actually, with gold. And when the guy got it in his head, what if I took the bottoms out of these? And after pouring tons, like, why isn't this filling up? He realized, all right, that's just wrong. And he figured a breach of contract and took the guy immediately.
That's an awful story. See, now but Krampus might tell you that was naughty. That's gluttony,
yeah.
right?
Agreed, I would think.
Yeah,
Unless
agreed.
you're eating the gold.
I don't know. Were they eating the gold?
Yeah, really.
Might as well have been.
Probably
Well,
had to
the
use it.
beauty about Krampus seems to me that he is that literally that down to earth character
Yes.
that isn't going to put up with any of that. You did that to me? Pff, sorry, kid. I'm on to you.
Yep.
And he is that earth elemental being that doesn't put up with anything.
Right. You've been naughty. And as I was raised, there are consequences for every action and reaction. Oh no. That's usually when they found out he did something bad,
Right.
when I got the consequences lecture.
Uh-huh.
Somebody in the chat room wants to know if you've ever heard of somebody leaving schnapps out for Krampus.
Yes, I have heard those stories. Now, in today's world, you really can't have your kids playing with schnapps.
True.
But in Germany, it would be a lot easier for children to be around beer. It's just a different culture again.
Right.
And maybe Russian children leave vodka. You never know.
It's schnapps and ginger cake.
Yeah, ginger cake is always good. Our gingerbread men.
Oh, yeah, true.
Wow.
Very true. But it's almost the dichotomy of Krampus versus Santa Claus, because you have that down to earth. This is what happens when you do bad things, but you need to aspire to the Santa.
Right. Because remember, Santa, based on St. Nicholas, was a man who gave his all for his community.
Right.
Okay. So these are lessons, again, of the golden rule: do unto others as you do to the
As you would have others do unto you.
do unto
Yeah.
you. It was funny because I was talking with a young person recently, and I said, remember the golden rule? And they said, what? Leaves of 3, let it be. And I was like, yes and no. And, so sometimes we do need to reiterate certain things. And, if anything, COVID has taught us, it's that do unto others as you would want to be done unto you.
Sure.
If you have any kind of symptoms, right? You don't go wandering out and kissing everybody.
No.
You try to, self-contain yourself until
As much as we want to.
Yeah. Some
Yes.
some people don't care though.
those who don't care have not had it. I will tell you that.
But
We're seeing it.
if they keep on, they're going to catch it. Yeah.
And one can only hope, though, that they will survive well.
Right.
Okay. But the older you are, like with the flu, the harder it can be on the body. And especially if you have coexisting conditions when you get that. I had a rough time of it. It's not fun. Okay. And I got it from people who didn't know they had it. Because way back in the beginning, nobody knew anything about it.
Right.
Right.
Okay. In a lot of ways that was good, and in a lot of ways wasn't so good. But we need to think about that at this Christmas, don't we?
Yes.
I mean, be polite. Don't rush the malls the night before when you know you may be bringing back a different gift for your kids.
Yes.
Okay?
Oh,
The wrong
you
kind.
want to do
Yeah,
everything you
the gift that will
can.
keep on giving.
Yeah.
It's actually worse than the fruitcake. Think about it.
oh, Henry loves
Oh,
fruitcake.
No,
You know
I do
that
not
we
love
had a
fruitcake.
We had a fruitcake that went around our family for 17 years.
the same fruitcake?
It became an ongoing joke. Yes.
It probably lasted too. Them things are
It
soaked in
did.
alcohol.
Nobody would eat it by that time. And on the bottom, one of my cousins had put, are you ready? Originally given to by, and then the next one, and the next one.
Oh my.
And it was just hysterical because one aunt loved these fruitcakes. And next to mince pie, it was the most hated thing that would ever come in the door. So one of my cousins decided that this would be the gift that keeps on giving.
Yes.
And inevitably, it would be given back to the aunt, who would then gift it to someone else. And so, remember hot potato, that game?
oh
There
yeah.
you go.
Yep, yep.
Oh boy.
Became a performance art piece.
Yes, it did. And it was hysterical. But I mean, it really, and these are the things, your family can make traditions. Don't think you have to go on the originals.
Oh yeah.
You can have funny, happy traditions. You will be making memories for your kids and yourself and, your relatives. Be creative this Christmas time.
Well, every family has their own version of their own traditions. My dad's family had what we call the walnut story, which was a family tale that my grandmother told every Christmas, no matter how often her kid said, "Mom, we know this. We know it by heart." And I grew up with the story, and I knew it by heart as well. So whenever we refer to something that a tale that one family member constantly retells, we just call that a walnut story.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that doesn't work so well when someone has Alzheimer's, though, when you get the same stories. Is that like a whole bag of walnuts?
No, the story goes is that my father was the middle of 7 children. They were they were not affluent in any way. And that one Christmas, they rushed downstairs to their stockings, and all the kids were playing with what toys they did have under the tree. Uncle Bill went into his stockings and he pulled out like a little toy train. He put it aside. He put a little toy boat, put that aside. And finally he reached down to the very toe of the stocking was a walnut that he pulled out and said, "Yes, that's what I wanted for Christmas." And my grandma would tell that story every year as though no one had heard it. And they're like, "Oh, we know this story."
Oh, that is adorable. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I have that on my website. I have a glossary of weird stuff in my life, and walnut story, the story every family tells, and I related it, and I actually wrote it up in haiku.
Oh, very cool.
Wow.
Well, there are tales of fruitcake and mince pies in chat. I have never gathered in courage to eat a minced pie because I simply just don't know what it is.
We used to say it with rat tails and all kinds of things to gross each other out. I wouldn't do it. It just doesn't taste right.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Just wrong.
Like Lisa Simpson's vision of what's in a hot dog.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, I think one of the most hated gifts to get, I guess, for Christmas was people would go to the malls and they would buy these. It come in a package, a box, and it would have different cheeses and different canned meats and stuff like that. I forget what they're called, but they're in a package and just give them to people. You get it.
Oh, but they're so good. I loved the Hickory Farms one.
That's ones I was talking about. Yeah.
Yep. I loved that. I know some people didn't like them,
Oh,
but I loved them, especially if they had the oxtail soup. And then my father and I would fight over the summer sausage.
now the summer sausage I liked. That was usually pretty good with the crackers.
Yep. And the cheese.
And
Cheese
the
was always good.
Yeah. I mean, I'd eat them, but a lot of people hated them.
Oh, I know. But you know what? People complain all the time.
Sure.
You know, and if you think about it, you know, wasn't it nice that someone cared enough that you'd have a meal?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And remember, they were usually big enough for your family.
They
Sometimes
did.
they had nuts in them. And sometimes they even had candy in them.
Yeah, just,
And it's a kind thought.
uh-huh.
Okay, for relatives you rarely see, they don't know what you like. And it's easier on them to go and get something they know the whole family will at least benefit from.
Right.
I think people get too critical about gifts.
They do. They do. And they don't realize that it's somebody spent the money to buy it for you.
Yep.
Yeah. And you shouldn't holler about what you get. It's the thought. Somebody giving you something.
Well, John used to tell a story that always cracked me up, was that he and his aunt were very close. And for the holidays, she would always give him his gifts on Christmas Eve, and she gave him a blue sweater and a green sweater, okay? And he wanted to make sure that she realized that he appreciated it. So he wore the green sweater on Christmas Day to the family party. And what do you think her response was? Oh,
you didn't like the blue one?
I'll take it back. I'll take it back to Filene's. You don't like the blue one. And, you know, throughout the dinner, he had to explain to her that he couldn't have worn 2 sweaters.
Wow.
Ooh,
So
these 2 hours went fast.
what time frame did Krampus operate in? Was it always before Christmas, or was Krampus a year-round thing?
Krampus could be whatever the family wanted, but in my family, it was clearly just the night of the 5th.
Okay.
A lot of families, it was the night of the 5th. But the story can work. Remember, you're trying to get your kids to behave until Christmas Eve.
Ah,
So if you need babysitting from the older kids, if you need, more work in the field, whatever, this is the time, get it done because you've got control.
Advent is actually prevent.
Yes. Very good way of putting it.
yes. Prevent them from being bad.
Yes. You'll have at least a month of not so much crises.
Ah.
And depending on what's in the Advent calendars, it could very well be.
A Krampus calendar. We could make a lot of money on those.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
That would be kind of cool.
We got to get with Marian and think of ways we can do that.
Okay.
So I'll tell you, Krampus, I've tried that with my dogs, and it doesn't work.
Oh, yeah, I got 2 kitty cats. Nothing bothers them.
No, I tell them, why are you doing this? Krampus is coming.
Yeah.
And they look at me and what? Cesar? Yeah.
Do I
Bowl?
get something to eat?
Yeah, bowl.
All right, our time is running right on down, and I want to thank you for taking the time to be with us. I'm going to let you tell everybody, because you do a show here on ParaX Now, and I want you to tell everybody how they can listen to you and what show's about.
Oh, you're so nice. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be on. I do New Aeon Now with Davron Michaels and Christine Motza from 10 to 11 on Thursday nights, and that's Eastern Time. And this week we are talking about the dark side of Christmas. And then next week after that, we will be having Christmas with COVID. And we're encouraging everybody to come, and it's going to be lighthearted so we can look at the good aspects of the holiday in the worst aspects of a situation.
And that's this Thursday?
This Thursday will be Dark Christmas.
Oh, dark?
Yes.
Dark Christmas.
The dark side of all those things that you thought were lovely stories.
You should definitely try and find rare exports and enjoy that.
Yes.
Wow.
I'm looking for peppernuss cookies that I have not found yet. And usually I can find them on Thanksgiving Day.
And
so,
what kind of cookies are those?
They're white powdered cookies that have I want to say spice inside. And you usually get them like our Wegmans gets them. And I haven't seen them yet.
Are they like a German cookie?
Yes, they are.
Okay. We got a store.
They're kind of peppery, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
We got a store here in Hamilton, and it's called Jungle Gyms. And you go in there, they have all kinds of cookies and food from Germany. And you go back, they have a whole another section that has food from Switzerland or Sweden and all those places. They got different types of food from all them places. So you can get on Amazon and you can find those German cookies on Amazon.
That's a happy story.
Yes.
Yeah.
With that, our time has run out, and I want you to stay on until after we're off. Well, thank you. This is Henry Foister.
Jeffrey Gould.
And Barbara Duncan.
And we will see you next week at the same time. So good night, everybody. You've been listening to the Paranormal View on the ParaX Radio Network. Join us again next week at the same time for more of the Paranormal View.